this session. I was able to record, and therefore we can continue. So I want to trust that all of us are well, that God has kept you safe this far in these difficult times, and that you are sober enough for the learning to continue today, right? How is my phone functioning today? What is wrong? What is happening? Such that I'm not even able to mute you people from where I am. What's wrong? Let me see. Let me trust that you're able to mute yourself. Can you mute yourself, you people? You mute yourself. Good. So we can continue. Sorry, we had some issue, or we have some issues with the system, which are being looked at since yesterday. They are not yet through, and therefore we are affected. Our morning session is will be affected, of course, by this. And I couldn't imagine us not being able to have a class, and therefore we had to look for alternative means through which to hold our class, right? Last week we looked at the introduction to monetary theory, and we said that our focus this semester will be about money. We need to understand what money is. We looked at the features or characteristics of money last week. We looked at the role of money. We looked at the functions of money, right? And therefore today we look at demand for money. Demand for money. That is our focus today. Our focus today is on demand for money. And I hope Zoom has only given us 40 minutes. I'm not sure whether we are able to renew that. I'm not sure. I hope I should be through within that period, and then leave some assignment that needs to be addressed and done. Good. Now, demand for money is different from any other demand of any other commodity or service that we know. I know we've done some courses in economics, and we dealt with the issues of demand and the supply, right? And therefore, demand for money and the supply of money are different from the demands and supply of commodities and services that we all know. Yeah. Now, demand for commodities, if you remember, is made because they have what we call utility, right? And that is the quality of satisfying the needs that you may have. It is because of the utility of education that you demand for it. It is because of that utility, for ugali that you demand for it. It's the quality of satisfying your needs. That's what you call utility. But money does not possess utility to satisfy consumers, at least not directly. Yeah, it doesn't possess that quality to satisfy you, at least not directly. Why is money demanded when it doesn't have that utility? Why is it demanded? Good. Money is demanded for two main reasons. It is demanded for two main reasons, and one is that it serves as a medium of exchange, and number two is that it works as a store of value. Right? 180 serves as a medium of exchange, and it acts as a store. It acts as a store of value. No, those people who are getting in, can you kindly mute yourself? I'm not able to locate the usual functionality here muting you. Yeah, to ensure that as you get in, you mute yourself. Mute all. I can do that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I was able to trace it, and therefore I'm able to mute you or unmute you as I want. And therefore, I have said that money does not have utility, right? But it is still demanded by people. And therefore, money is demanded by people for two main reasons. One, it serves as a medium of exchange, and two, it works as a store of value. As a medium of exchange, money will help in exchange of goods and services, right? It helps in exchange of goods and services, in that if you have a bike and you want to buy a phone, right? Money will act as a medium so that you're able to sell the bike and buy a phone, right? Good. As a store of value, of course, we see that it is held as an asset. As a store of value, it is held as an asset, which means that just as you own a phone, as you own a laptop as one of your assets, as you own a car as one of your assets, you can also store money. You can also own money and store it as an asset. Now, the medium of exchange gives, using money as a medium of exchange will give rise to what we call the transaction demand for money, right? It will give rise to what we call transaction, because you are using it, when you're using it as a medium of exchange, you are using it to transact. And therefore, it gives rise to what we are calling what? Transaction demand for money. When you use it as a store of value, it will give rise to what we call asset demand for money. So those two terms are very important. One is transaction demand for money, and the other one is the asset demand for money. So if I'm able to put this somewhere, I'll be able to put this somewhere here. Demand for money. Transaction demand for money. And the other one we have said is the asset demand for money. The first one is because money is being used as a medium of exchange, and the second one is because the money is being used as a store of value. And therefore, that is very, 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 very important. It is very, very important to note that. Therefore, we can say that the total demand for money is an aggregate of these two, right? We can say that the total demand for money is the aggregate of the two. It is the aggregate of the two, which means you add the transaction demand for money plus the asset demand for money for you to know the aggregate demand or the total demand for money. Now, the supply of money, or what we call the volume of money in circulation, right? Because the supply of money is the same as the volume of money that is in circulation. This will refer to the volume of money held by the public, right? It will refer to the volume of money that is held by the public, and the public will consist of individuals, right? Who, of course, will hold money in form of coins and currencies, right? And it also consists of bank deposits that are withdrawable by check. Yeah, bank deposit withdrawable by check. But it is important to know that it does not include the money that is held by central bank and the government and the commercial banks. It doesn't include money held by central bank, government, or commercial bank. And therefore, this should be very clear that supply, when we talk about supply of money, we are looking at the money in the hands of individuals and money that is deposited but withdrawable via check. Money that is deposited with the commercial banks but withdrawable. And it is therefore um, paramount again to conclude here that the demand and supply of money will determine the level of income in the society. They will also affect the level of expenditure. They will affect the level of savings, consequently affecting the level of investment and generally affecting the level of prices in the economy. I hope that is clear, that the supply of money and the demand for it is what will affect the prices in the economy. It is what will affect the level of income. It is what will affect the level of expenditure. It is what will affect the level of savings and investment in the economy. And therefore, what that means is that the money problem um, are closely associated with the demand or supply of money. Any money problem in the economy, any problem that comes as a result of money is closely associated with its supply or demand. And therefore, what that means is that most of these money problems can be addressed or remedied by regulating what? By regulating demand and supply of money, by regulating the demand and the supply of money. I'm not sure whether I should have shared this document so that we are able to move a bit faster. I think that will be okay. Good, and I want to hope that now you can see it. We just done the introduction there. So we look at the transaction demand for money. Transaction demand for money. Remember, we have seen this emanate from from the usage of money as a medium of exchange, right? And therefore, again, demand for money or money is used in facilitation of trading activities. And trading will include purchase and sale of commodities, be they goods or services in the economy, right? And therefore, it is important that the individuals, business, the government, and the corporates, that for them, they should hold at least some form of some amount of money to facilitate this, because everybody at the end of the day will need some goods. Everybody will need some services. The businesses will need some goods, and businesses will need some services. Now, if you excuse me, I need to sort out something here. Sorry for that. It's a lot of noise from outside here. I will not have continued. Now, I was talking about the transaction demand for money. And I was saying that all of us, whether individual, business firm or corporate firms or the government, we all need money to buy some items and to buy some goods. And therefore you expect that at any given time, we will be holding some amount of money for that or for those purposes. Yeah, we'll be holding some amount of money for that purposes. And that is what we are calling what? The transaction demand for money. That at the end of the day, everyone must hold some amount of money to meet their transaction demand for money. Now, it is also important for me to note that the need to hold money for transaction purposes arise from the fact that the receipts and payment do not occur simultaneously. I hope, again, that is clear. If, for example, you knew that you will be able to get money whenever you need it, or whenever you need to buy something, then there will be no need for you to hold any money. Because it would mean that money, when the money comes in, it would coincide with when you want to buy something, right? When the money comes in, it would coincide with when you want to buy something. And therefore, you just simply take the money that you have and buy the service or the commodity that you need. And therefore, we demand for money because of that disparity, that the time that we want to buy something is not the time that we receive the money. The time that we receive the money will be different from when we get to demand. And that's why we receive money, many people will receive money at the end of the month, right? But the needs are not just at that time. The needs are spread throughout throughout the month, so that there are those needs that you'll be able to meet at the beginning of the month. There are other needs that you'll be able to meet at the middle of the month, in the middle of the month, others at the end, towards the end of the month. And therefore, it means that you need to hold some amount of money that will take you throughout that month. If it was possible that all the needs can be met at one time, then you not need to keep that money in your pocket. So what are the determinants of the transaction demand for money? What is the determinant of the amount of money that you hold for transaction purposes? And one is your level of income, right? Your level of income will determine the amount of money that you hold for transaction purpose. If, for example, you're paid 20,000 per month, yeah, you cannot say that you hold that 20,000 per month, the 20,000 in your pocket throughout the month. Probably you will take a percentage of it, be it 5%, 10%, that you say every month this money must be always with me, right? If you have if you are earning 100,000, then it would mean that a certain percentage of that money, which probably would be for 100,000, probably you take 10% of it is 20,000. No, 10% of it is 10,000, right? And therefore, you'd comfortably hold that 10,000 in your pocket for transaction purposes, for the goods and services that you may need to buy during that period, right? And therefore, we say that the higher the level of income, the larger the amount of money that you'd be willing to hold for transaction purpose. So that the person who has 1 million, earning 1 million in a month, will still want to hold a higher amount. Probably 100,000 would be sufficient for him to do these small issues and errands of buying some goods and services here and there. And therefore, you can see that the higher the amount of money that you have, then the higher the amount of income that you're earning, the higher the amount of money that you're likely to have in your pocket for transactions that can occur. And therefore, here again, simply we say MT is equals to KY, which means that MT is the amount of money that you hold in a month or for transaction purposes. And the K here is the proportion of the level of the income, and the Y is the national income. Now, this is when it is applied to the nation. When it is for individual, then you will say that the amount of money that you hold in your pocket, that is MT, will be equal to a certain percentage of your income. A certain percentage, which is K, of your income, which is Y. For a nation, it will be the level of national income here. And I hope that is clear. And then we're given this example, which we can work out. Given that we have that formula, let us work out that example where we've been given and told that the level of income, that is Y, is 1,000. K, or the proportion that you want to keep or you would keep for transaction purpose, is 1/5 or a fifth. If you're told to calculate the demand for money, then it would be simply this way. You say that MT is equals to K, which is 1/5, multiplied by Y, which is 1,000, to get what? To get 200. I want to hope that that is clear. Now, if the national income changes, or if the income changes, if this Y changes, if that national income changes, it means that the amount of money that you keep for transaction purposes would also change in the same proportion, right? In the same proportion, it would change. As long as we assume that it is constant, the amount of money that you want to keep for transaction purposes is constant, right? Like if income goes to 1,500, if income goes to 1,500, then the MT is likely to change to 300, because it will be MT is equals to 1/5 multiplied by 1,500 to get 300. I hope that is clear. The second determinant of demand for money is what we call the pattern of income, payment, and expenditure. The pattern of income, payments, and expenditure. And what this simply means is, what is your pattern? Yeah, what is the pattern of the income that you're getting? If you're able to get income daily, would you need to hold money? If you only get income at the end of the month, it means that you must be able to plan yourself so that you hold an amount that is sufficient to last you throughout that month. If you're able to get income only once in a semester, like you people, what do? You want to hold some amount that is sufficient to take you throughout the semester. And that amount is likely to be higher. If your parents send you money every 2 weeks, it would only mean that you want to hold amount that is sufficient for only those 2 weeks, right? And therefore, the pattern of income and expenditure that you have is a determinant of the amount of money that you can hold for transaction purposes. Number 3 is the system of payment. The system of payment. Now, different countries will have different types and systems of payment. And when we're talking about, oh my, 10 meeting ending in 10 minutes. It will end in 10 minutes time. Sorry for that. We'll have to maybe renew and then log in again. So you watch out. We hold another meeting. Maybe if you not have completed, and log out and log in again using new credentials. We'll see that. Now, the system of payment, or the system of income payment, will include 2 factors. It will include 2 factors, and one of the factor is let me see. Good. One of the factor is the stages in transaction, and the other one is the pattern of flow of payment. Now, the stages in transactions will influence the volume of transaction and the demand for money, right? How many stages does it have to go through before money is paid? How many stages does the money have to go through before it is utilized for payment? Now, money passes through distinct stages, right? From recipient to the retailers, then go through a number of agencies, it reaches the producers, right? And therefore, if those stages are many, it means that you need to hold more money in your pocket, right? If the stages are very few, it means that that money would reach the producer very fast, and the producer will be able to buy and manufacture goods again very fast. But if it is a long pattern, then it would mean that you need to hold more money in your pocket. Now, if the flow is regular on the other side, on the other hand, if the flow is regular, then you need to only hold a small amount of money. If the flow is regular and even, for example, you know that every week on Friday, you'll be receiving some amount of money, right? And therefore, if that is the event, then you not need to hold a lot of money. But if the flow is irregular, that you don't know the next time you are receiving that amount of money, or you don't know after what duration you receive any amount of money, then you need to hold more amount of money for transaction purposes. I hope that is clear. Number 4 is what we call the use of credit. Remember, you're looking at the determinants. What determines the amount of money that you put and hold in your pocket for transaction purposes? So the other use here is what we call the use of credit, right? And the use of credit will reduce the effective demand for money for transaction purposes because you don't need to have the actual cash if you can buy on credit, right? You will not need to have the actual cash because the use of credit postpones the immediate requirement of money to pay for transaction. If, for example, you knew that you can use, you have a card, for example, or you can, not even a card. If you know near you where you stay, there is a shopkeeper, yeah, who can always give you a packet of unga and some other items, and no demand for payment. If they give you for on credit and expect you to pay whenever money comes, then it means you not need to hold a lot of money in your pocket for transaction purposes. I hope that is clear. I hope that is clear. Is it? I hope it is clear. Next, we are looking at the classical theory of demand for money. And this is also called Fisher's transaction approach to demand for money. It is important that we are able to note this because in exams or whatever, we'll demand that you explain the Fisher's transaction, for example, approach to demand for money. And you can imagine there are several approaches that we are going to discuss from now to know how they reasoned, right? To know how they reasoned. There are a few things that you're going to discuss from now to know how these people reasoned. A minute. We have 4 minutes remaining here. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to complete this section, but let's try. Now, I'm saying that it is important that we are able to know some of these things. Fisher is one of the economists, and remember in economics, we have different schools of thought, which means different types of reasoning. and different types of looking at problems and trying to analyze and solve them. And therefore, Fisher is of this classical school or classical theory of reasoning in economics. And therefore, in is what we call transaction approach. He gives it a different. Let me see. He gives it a different way. He looks at it in a different way. He looks at it in a different way than the one that we have already seen. And in his theory, Fisher and of course other classical economists we lay stress on the medium of exchange function, right? That is as a means of buying of goods and services, just the way we have seen here, medium of exchange. And therefore, all the transactions involving the purchase of goods and the services and raw materials will relate to the money, and we relate to money as the value of transaction that is made, right? Now, the accounting identity, if accounting identity that is value paid must equal to the value received is to occur, then the value of goods and services and asset sold must be equal to the value for those that are paid. And therefore, for him, he gives it a different approach. He gives it a different approach where he tells us that MV is equals to PT. This is the formula that he applies. And this formula is not very different from the one that we have looked at of MT is equals to KY. If you look at it, it's not very different because here M stands for the quantity of money in circulation, right? And the V stands for the velocity. Velocity just means the number of times that money circulates. And the P stands for the average price, right? And T stands for the total transaction. Now, the above identity was transformed into a theory of demand by making some assumptions about the variable. And these assumptions would include that M is fixed, right? The quantity of money in circulation is always fixed by CBK. Is always fixed by CBK, and therefore, the formula will assume that a given amount of money will be there for a particular period of time. Yeah. Number two is that the number of transactions in a period is a function of national income or is affected by the level of national income. And therefore, the greater the level of national income, the greater the level of national income, the greater the number of transactions. The other assumption that was given is that the Fisher assumed full employment, right? He assumed full employment, that all the resources in a country were all engaged in production. And T was therefore assumed to be fixed in the short run. And T is the total number of transactions. And as a result, then he was able to calculate the he was able to calculate the price. He was able to calculate the price with the quantity of money in circulation, which is fixed, with the velocity of money, and with the total number of transactions, then you should be able to calculate what? You should be able to calculate PT. Now, it is important for you again to ensure